When it comes to attraction, so much happens before a single word is ever spoken. Think about those first few seconds when someone notices you. They don't know your personality yet, they haven't heard your voice, and they haven't seen how funny or kind you are. What they notice is presence. And one of the most powerful parts of that presence, whether you realize it or not, is your legs. Men often won't even be fully aware of why they look. They just do. It's instinctive. Legs hold this fascinating mix of elegance and allure. They send signals without any effort from you. Long, short, slender, strong, toned, whatever shape they take, the point is they're visible, and visibility breeds attention. A pair of legs walking into a room is sometimes enough to shift the atmosphere. Men notice because legs symbolize vitality and movement, a sense of life and energy that makes someone instantly more magnetic. The fantasy starts because legs are tied to confidence. When a man sees a woman who carries herself with poise, her strides steady, her steps intentional, his mind creates stories without her saying a word. That walk isn't just physical, it's psychological. It tells him she's sure of herself, and confidence is sexy. Men don't fantasize about insecurity, they fantasize about presence. Legs play into that because they reveal the way you own space. If you walk like you belong, men respond. If you stand like you're comfortable in your own skin, they respond. It's not about perfection, it's about energy. Another reason legs capture so much attention is because they bridge two worlds, elegance and desire. On one hand, they're graceful, refined, something associated with class. On the other, they're raw, primal, and undeniably physical. That contrast is where fantasies are born. Men are drawn to the things that mix sophistication with sensuality. A glance at your legs can carry both signals at once, which is why it's hard to look away. Even if men never admit it out loud, their imagination races. They project confidence, mystery, and playfulness onto the way you carry yourself. It's not even about bare skin all the time. A woman in jeans, walking with effortless rhythm, can turn more heads than someone revealing more. That's because the fascination isn't just about the body part itself. It's about the story legs tell in the moment. The way they stride across the street, the way they shift when you sit down, the way they uncross and cross again. These movements create impressions that feel larger than the action itself. Men pick up on it subconsciously, and those little cues feed into fantasies that go far beyond the surface. And what's most interesting is that legs have the power to create a first impression that lingers. A man might forget the color of your shirt or the style of your hair, but he'll remember the feeling he had watching you walk across the room, or the way your presence seemed amplified by the way you carried yourself. That's why legs play such a central role in fantasies. They're not just noticed, they're remembered. They represent not only physical attraction, but also the aura you bring with you, the immediate spark that ignites before conversation even begins. What men often won't admit is that their fascination doesn't come from what's already obvious. It comes from what they can't fully see. The power of mystery is what turns an ordinary glance into a fantasy. Legs, more than most parts of the body, carry this delicate balance of reveal and conceal. When a man sees a glimpse, not the whole picture, his imagination goes into overdrive. That's where curiosity takes over. He doesn't just look at what's in front of him, he starts to think about what's hidden, what's just out of reach, and that unspoken question becomes far more intoxicating than any full reveal ever could. It's why subtlety is often more powerful than exposure. A skirt that shows just enough, a slit that flashes only in movement, even the way jeans hug the shape without giving everything away. These moments spark intrigue. Men don't sit there analyzing the details, they react instinctively. Their minds begin to fill in the blanks, and the blanks are always more exciting than the answers. Mystery fuels the imagination, and the imagination always builds scenarios that feel larger than reality. That's where fantasy lives, in suggestion, in the unsaid, in the tension between what is seen and what isn't. This is why the way you carry your legs matters just as much as their appearance. If you reveal too much too soon, the curiosity fades. But when there's restraint, when there's playfulness in how much is shown, men lean in mentally. They become invested in finding out more because mystery creates anticipation. And anticipation is the heartbeat of attraction. Without it, things feel flat. With it, every movement, every shift, every glimpse feels charged. Think about how a man notices a woman sitting with her legs crossed. It's not the pose alone that captures attention. It's the sense that something is deliberately hidden, that she has chosen to create a boundary he can't cross. That choice makes it magnetic. Fantasy isn't born from access, it's born from limitation. What's off limits is what lingers in the mind the longest. Men fantasize about the moments when they might be allowed closer, when the mystery finally unfolds. But until then, their imagination does all the work. Even in something as simple as walking, mystery plays a role. The rhythm of movement, the way fabric flows, the fleeting view of shape and form, these fragments suggest more than they reveal. And because they're fleeting, they stay in memory. The human brain remembers contrast, and mystery is contrast by nature. It shows a little, it hides a little, and in between it builds desire. That's why men recall not just legs themselves, but the moments attached to them. The glimpse on a staircase, the way a dress shifts when she sits down, the way light catches skin for half a second. Legs become the canvas for imagination precisely because they are both public and private. They're visible enough to draw attention, but personal enough that they carry an intimacy when noticed. Men don't just fantasize about the physical, they fantasize about the reveal, the privilege of access, the unfolding of mystery. And that's why the allure of legs isn't simply about their look, it's about the way they make a man wonder. Curiosity is the spark, and once it's lit, fantasies write themselves. When men talk about what captivates them, they rarely realize how much of it comes down to movement. Legs in motion are hypnotic in a way that a still picture could never capture. It's not just about shape or length, it's about rhythm, flow, and the energy behind each step. A woman walking confidently down the street isn't simply moving from one place to another. She's creating a performance without even trying. The sway of her stride, the natural shift of weight, the way fabric drapes and follows her, all of it forms a picture that lingers far longer than a static image ever could. Men don't always have the words for it, but they feel it. Movement breathes life into attraction. Even something as simple as crossing and uncrossing legs can spark an avalanche of thoughts in a man's head. It's not the action itself, it's the subtle story behind it. That little change in posture suggests comfort, poise, or sometimes playful defiance. And men are wired to notice these small cues. Their fantasies don't come from staring blankly at one fixed scene. They come from following the sequence, the transitions, the rhythm of what happens next. Movement creates momentum, and momentum creates excitement. Walking is one of the most powerful examples. The walk says everything before a woman speaks. If she drags her steps without purpose, the energy dies. But when she walks like she owns the path, with intention in every stride, men feel it instantly. It's confidence turned kinetic. A strong, fluid walk communicates that she is not only comfortable in her body, but also unapologetic about being seen. That unapologetic energy is exactly what drives wild fantasies, because it adds personality to physical attraction. It's no longer just about legs, it's about the story they're telling with every step. Dancing takes this magnetism even further. A simple sway, a small shift to the music, or even the way someone adjusts to rhythm reveals more than words could. Movement tied to music connects to something primal. Men see freedom in it, a release of control, a joy that's contagious. Legs become instruments of expression, translating confidence and sensuality in a way that feels spontaneous. And when something feels spontaneous, it feels alive. That aliveness is what fuels men's imaginations. They don't just see legs, they see freedom, passion, and playfulness embodied in motion. What fascinates men most is the unpredictability of movement. Stillness is predictable, motion keeps them guessing. The way a woman adjusts her posture when she sits, the tilt of her knees, the stretch of her calves as she stands, all these subtle shifts add layers of intrigue. It's not grand gestures but micro, moments that capture attention. These fleeting details make fantasies vivid because they leave behind impressions that men can replay in their minds. They imagine not just the moment they saw, but what the next movement could have been, and the one after that. That continuous storyline keeps attraction alive. Ultimately, the magnetism of movement is about more than aesthetics. It's about energy, presence, and intention. Legs in motion symbolize vitality. They suggest a woman who is not stagnant but dynamic, not passive but alive with direction. Men fantasize about that vitality because it connects to their own desire for momentum, excitement, and possibility. What sticks in memory is never just the shape of a leg. It's the way it moved, the confidence it carried, and the silent message it sent without ever trying. There's something undeniable about the way legs embody both femininity and strength at the same time. Men notice not just because of how they look, but because of what they represent. Legs are symbols. They speak of vitality, movement, and confidence. When a woman's legs look strong, when they carry her with grace and purpose, men don't only see physical beauty. They see a story of someone who takes ownership of herself. And in that story, fantasy takes root. Attraction becomes layered because it's not just about skin or shape. It's about what those legs suggest about the woman behind them. Men have wild fantasies not only about the visual, but about the qualities that visuals reveal. Toned legs suggest discipline, care, and a lifestyle that requires commitment. Even if men don't consciously analyze it that way, the subconscious connection is there. They see vitality, and vitality is magnetic. It suggests energy, passion, and life force. On the other hand, graceful legs that don't need to be perfectly sculpted but simply move with elegance, signal comfort, femininity, and softness. That combination of strength and gentleness is irresistible because it mirrors the balance men crave: power and vulnerability coexisting. Confidence is the glue that ties it all together. A woman who is comfortable in her own skin radiates it through her legs. She doesn't need to flaunt or exaggerate. It's in the way she sits without fidgeting, the way she walks with a natural rhythm, the way she chooses to stand her ground. Men notice because confidence has a way of making everything else more attractive. Legs become not just physical features, but amplifiers of that inner assurance. And that's why fantasies often center around them. They become shorthand for a woman's strength, her elegance, her boldness to be seen. There's also something deeply symbolic in the way legs are tied to independence. They're what carry you forward in life. They're what make you mobile, free, capable of standing tall. Men pick up on that, even if it's not conscious. Legs represent freedom and autonomy. When a woman shows that she doesn't need anyone to hold her up, that she can stand and move on her own, it sparks both admiration and desire. Men fantasize about being close to that energy because it feels magnetic. It's not about dependency, it's about being drawn to someone who is already whole. The feminine power of legs lies in contrast. They can be soft and delicate in one moment, strong and commanding in the next. That versatility keeps men captivated because it means there's more to discover. A single glance can spark fantasies of closeness, of playful intimacy, of being let into a private side of her that the world doesn't always get to see. And all of that is communicated not through words, but through the Presence Legs project. They whisper confidence, they showcase vitality, and they hint at a strength that doesn't need to be announced. In the end, what men fantasize about isn't just physicality, it's the essence that physicality carries. Legs are a stage for both femininity and power, for elegance and authority. When men see them, they see more than skin. They see a woman who knows who she is, who moves with purpose, who blends softness with strength. And that mix is what stirs their imagination the most, because it tells them she isn't just beautiful, she's magnetic, in a way that lives beyond appearances. One of the most fascinating things about legs is the way they can silently communicate without ever needing words. Men pick up on these signals even if they don't realize it, and that's where fantasies begin. The position of a woman's legs can act like an unspoken language. Crossed tightly, they suggest a certain level of reserve, of privacy, of keeping something to herself. Open just slightly, they suggest comfort, ease, and sometimes invitation. That contrast alone is enough to keep a man's mind racing, because he's constantly reading into those little cues, trying to decode what they might mean. It's not always intentional on a woman's part. Sometimes it's just comfort or habit, but men will layer meaning onto it. A casual shift, the uncrossing of legs at the right moment, can feel like a door opening to them. A playful tilt of the knee, a slight angle that offers a different perspective, can spark entire scenarios in their imagination. Men fantasize not simply about what they see, but about the choice behind it. Was it deliberate? Was it subconscious? Was it a tease? That uncertainty is what fuels the fire, because it leaves room for interpretation. There's also the tease of permission versus denial. When a woman chooses to reveal just a little more, it feels like she's offering a glimpse into something private. When she withholds, it feels like she's drawing a boundary, and strangely, that boundary can be just as exciting. Men are drawn to the idea of look, but don't touch, because it creates tension. That tension is the seed of fantasy. The more he feels like he's being kept at a distance, the more his mind works to close that gap in imagination. And when he feels like he's been given a small privilege to see more, it feels like reward. Both sides of the equation, invitation and denial, have equal power. Even in social settings, men notice the language of legs. A woman leaning forward slightly with her knees parted signals openness, attention, and warmth. Someone angled away with her legs tightly crossed suggests guardedness. These signals happen all the time in subtle, fleeting moments. Men's fantasies are often tied to those flashes, the seconds where he thought he saw a window into something deeper. His brain replays it later, layering emotion, curiosity, and desire onto what may have been a casual shift of posture. What makes it more powerful is that legs hold this duality of control. They can draw someone in, but they can also shut someone out. A man fantasizes about being let past those gates, so to speak. He imagines the intimacy of being welcomed into the space that's usually protected. And because legs are such an expressive part of body language, they make that fantasy vivid. It's not just the physical aspect, it's the feeling of access, of being trusted enough to move past denial and into closeness. That's why men often describe legs as seductive without being able to explain why. It's not only about attraction, it's about communication. Legs say what words often won't. They extend invitations, they create distance, they playfully tease, and they boldly withhold. Men fantasize about those silent exchanges because they feel personal, like a private conversation happening in plain sight. And in that silent language, the fantasy grows, not from what's given, but from what's suggested. When men fantasize about legs, it's never just about the physical outline. Yes, the appearance catches the eye, but what keeps the imagination alive goes far deeper than skin. Legs become part of entire scenarios, emotional experiences, and moments of closeness that a man plays over in his mind. What starts as a glance often turns into a full narrative, where those legs are part of a dance, a quiet evening together, or an intimate gesture that feels charged with connection. The fantasy isn't isolated, it expands into context, into atmosphere, into feeling. That's why it's so powerful. It's not about an object, it's about the role those legs play in creating intimacy. Men often imagine the sensation of presence, not just the visual. They fantasize about sitting close, the brush of skin against skin, or the way legs might curl beside them during a quiet conversation. These aren't just physical touches, they're signals of closeness, of being invited into someone's private space. A man doesn't just think, her legs look good. He thinks about what it would feel like to experience them in moments that carry emotion, moments that are both tender and thrilling. That's why fantasies last, because they tie physical attraction to emotional connection. Another layer is the element of support and strength. Legs don't just look good. They carry, they move, they hold. In fantasies, men often imagine scenarios where a woman's strength and softness combine. The legs that walk with power are the same legs that rest gently against his in an intimate setting. That duality, strong yet soft, commanding yet inviting, creates complexity. Fantasies thrive on complexity because they blur boundaries between desire, admiration, and comfort. A man doesn't only want to look, he wants to feel, to experience, to be part of the moment where strength meets vulnerability. Even playfulness enters into the picture. Men imagine legs teasing under a table, brushing lightly in a way that only they notice. They imagine moments where movement is deliberate, designed to build tension without saying a word. That playful secrecy, the idea that something is happening in plain sight, but only between the two of you, turns fantasy into a private game. Legs become instruments of subtle flirtation, a way of communicating interest without needing language. That unspoken connection is intoxicating because it feels personal, almost like being let in on a secret no one else gets to share. And then there's the way legs are tied to vulnerability. In intimate fantasies, they're not just moving, they're wrapped, intertwined, resting. They symbolize letting someone in, dropping defenses, and allowing closeness. Men don't fantasize only about the thrill of desire. They fantasize about the quiet intimacy that follows, the feeling of being trusted, of being let close enough to experience softness without barriers. That's where physical attraction blends with emotional longing. At the heart of it, fantasies about legs aren't shallow, they're layered. They begin with attention to beauty, but they evolve into deeper stories about connection, power, play, and intimacy. Men imagine not just how legs look, but how they'd feel in shared experiences, how they'd transform ordinary moments into unforgettable ones. That's why legs hold such a place in the imagination. They are not just part of the body, they're part of the fantasy of closeness, of attraction that goes beyond sight, into feeling, into story, into connection.